The chapter begins a few days after the broadcast that exposed Dr. Doom and revealed what he was doing to the people of Latveria. In the days that followed, society became divided. Some still supported him, but protests against him appeared everywhere. Populations that once adored and defended him began to reject him, and governments that had stood by his side turned against him, supporting the heroes. Over time, those same governments marched against Dr. Doom with weapons and tanks pointed in his direction. Obviously, even with all his military power, humans were no match for him. Everything that stood in his way was left in ruins. In just 10 days, Doom had lost all control. The entire world was rising against him. Yet, in the impossible city, Tony commented that although the world now saw Doom for what he truly was, that did not mean they had won, and that was why they needed to gather all the necessary forces: the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and all the other heroes. This was the final resistance, formed by an unlikely team that ranged from Beta Ray Bill to Cyclops, from Mr. Fantastic to even Squirrel Girl. Meanwhile, Valeria, Doom's goddaughter, watched the live broadcast. She saw the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men confronting her godfather. She also remembered the conversation from months earlier, when he had tried to justify his actions by saying he was seeking glory. But now, that glory was gone. All that remained was power and control. And Val realized that Doom's plan had changed irreversibly. Now it was only about not giving up the throne he had conquered, like any dictator who refuses to release his grip on dominion. The problem was that while the world believed he had been weakened, the truth was the opposite. Doom was winning. On the battlefield, Doom faced the armies of the world, enduring their fury, but none of it was enough to bring him down. Despite small flaws in the midst of the fight, almost no one noticed them. No one except Reed Richards. Richards knew how to face him. He knew how to bring his enemy down. Surrounded by attacks from all sides, Doom believed he was prepared for anything Richards could do. Until, in the midst of combat, Reed surprised him, dragging him into the astral plane. The battle now expanded into another dimension. Richards, a man who had always feared magic because he did not understand it, had finally overcome that limitation. Doom mocked him, calling him a fool and saying that the oldest dog in the world had finally learned a new trick. But Richards had already accepted that exposing the truth to the world would not make Doom give up. That was why he had moved on to Plan B. Up until that moment, Doom had been at an advantage for one clear reason. He mastered magic. He manipulated temporal spells, dark arts, and powers that Reed had never understood. But this time, it was different. The scientist had spent all this time studying patterns, building a kind of periodic table of magic. He might not have been special, he might not have been chosen, and he would never consider himself a god. But he knew how to work. And his work was to transform science into a tool capable of understanding the unexplainable. Richards had created a new science, the science of magic. Based on the studies of how they had once defeated Dormammu, he decided to put everything into practice there. He declared with conviction that it was time to move forward. And now, in the astral plane, he challenged Doom as the Scientist Supreme against the Sorcerer Supreme. Doom, however, despised the attempt. He considered Richards a clown playing at divinity. To him, Reed was nothing more than a fraud, a thief who copied spells created by others. Doom said it was childish, that Richards was nothing more than an ambitious pretender. And as he grabbed his rival's face, he demonstrated his superiority. In that plane, Reed's body began to fragment. Doom declared that he was merely correcting the arrogance of a foolish man who dared to challenge an emperor. And indeed, Victor struck him with a blow that launched him into an infinite fractal dimension where every cell of his body was stretched to the impossible. Then he forever sealed Reed's access to the astral plane, locking him out of that domain and bringing them both back to the battlefield in Latveria. Back on the battlefield in Latveria, Mr. Fantastic pleaded for mercy. But Doom remembered that in the world, to the victor belong the spoils. Even so, he showed a cruel mercy. Dr. Doom decided to spare Richard's life, but he promised nothing beyond that.